President Biden is set to give his second State of the Union address tonight.
It is his first before a divided Congress with Republicans controlling the House and Democrats in charge of the Senate. He's expected to highlight his policy wins over the last 2 years. The speech could also lay the groundwork for a potential 2024 re-election bid. A source tells CBS News that the president is likely to make that announcement not long after the State of the Union.
CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns joins us now from outside the Capitol Dome. Caitlin, always great to see you. We expect the president will stay strong on saying the economy, the State of the Union is strong, as every president says. The economy is strong. That's why I'm such a great president. But from what you've understood so far, what will be his main focus during the speech?
Hey, Errol, it's great to be with you on this unseasonably warm February day in Washington, so we're grateful for that weather. But you're right, this is a time for the president to tout his accomplishments. A lot of what we're going to hear will be expected, talking about what they've done legislatively, talking about strides that they've made. We're going to hear him talk a little bit about the budget, perhaps, that he is going to be presenting next month, which also outlines priorities. And we're also going to hear him talk about unity and bipartisanship. And that's because this is the first time that he is facing this kind of Congress, a divided one, where Republicans are now in control of the House. And we will actually see that in the form of Kevin McCarthy, the new House Speaker, sitting right behind President Biden as he gives this speech. But from our polling, people at home watching want to hear about the economy. And this is where the challenge really is for the president, because in our polling, 62% of Americans say that the country is divided right now. Remember, this is a president who campaigned on uniting the country after the Trump era. And most say that his policies, according to our poll, most say that his policies, the Biden administration policies, are actually contributing to a worsening economy, especially when it comes to inflation. So the challenge for the president is that the economy, there have been signs of things looking good on paper, but it's certainly the case, according to our polling, that Americans are just not feeling that at home. I talked to a Democratic congressman just a little while ago who's a big supporter of this president, who said, you can't talk only about accomplishments and how the economy is good in your mind. That will sound tone deaf. So really kind of striking that balance. But guys, I thought that number from our poll, that 62% feel the country is divided, kind of speaks to a lot right now. And that's a big challenge for any president.
Yeah, only 10% of respondents said that they felt that the country was united. You mentioned the Trump administration in that era. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who had served previously as a spokesperson for President Trump, she was the person who selected to give the Republican response to the State of the Union tonight. What does that choice say about the direction of the GOP, Caitlin?
Well, Lana, you're right to bring up her connections to Trump. That is very apparent. That's how most Americans know her, as the former spokesperson for the Trump White House and a big defender of his. Now she is the youngest governor in the country at age 40, and that is going to be a contrast on display. Biden is 80 years old, so Republicans are hoping to strike a contrast there. They're also hoping to strike a contrast in terms of kind of taking people outside of Washington, talking about how people are feeling outside the country, and wanting to highlight her as kind of the future of the party at this point. But guys, what's really interesting is that she's not the first Arkansan to speak, to deliver this kind of rebuttal to the State of the Union from the opposing party. The last Arkansas governor who gave that rebuttal speech was President, then turned out to be president, but then Governor Bill Clinton in 1985.
Interesting. And it's a very difficult gig. The rebuttal to any State of the Union is a very tough thing.
Some say it's cursed.
Yeah. One other question we have, Caitlin, is about House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, because he gave a pre-buttal speech yesterday focused on the debt ceiling. Speak to us about his relationship with President Biden, because President Biden had campaigned on his relationships, his ability to reach across the aisle when he campaigned for the presidency. So what is the relationship like between these two men?
Yeah, and Errol, I think the fact that he gave a pre-buttal speech and the way that he did it with the pomp and circumstance surrounding it kind of tells you a lot about this relationship, that the speaker sees himself as a contrast to the current president. And a lot of Republicans this past midterm cycle campaigned on putting a stop to the Biden agenda. So that's kind of where they start. They did meet in person for the first time last week in this new dynamic where you have speaker and the president. But what was interesting is that they are just really not on the same page when it comes to the debt ceiling as a leverage point. What we heard from Speaker McCarthy yesterday was that he sees the debt ceiling as a big chance for Congress to change course, to, in his words, correct overspending, even though the debt ceiling, raising it, has to do with money already spent. But that just shows a sticking point there and a place where Republicans are trying to kind of hold the administration to that. But that's a big disagreement and one that will have consequential effects for the economy and people's bottom lines.
Absolutely. And like you said, Caitlin, we'll be watching to see how he responds right there over the shoulder of the president tonight. Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you.
Thanks, Caitlin.